All right, so we're here today. I'm Nicholas Davenport, a.k.a. Mr. Mental Muscle, here on the Mind, Body, One University channel. I here have Harold Rose. So he has actually been kind of a business consultant for me for the last 5 years. He has a big role indirectly and directly on the success of Mind, Body, One. So I wanted to have a talk with him candidly on things that he could actually help with my business out. I've had a lot of success in the last decade, and I'm proud of where I've gotten. But like anything, you have to be able to work on your strengths, but also work on your weaknesses. And everyone needs a coach. With that being said, though, Harold, we had a talk last night, and we're talking about unification, communication, implementation, and all the things that Mind, Body, One does have going for itself, but also things they could work on. So we don't get into the nitty gritty of the specifics, but there's some concepts that you can help us as well as our watchers on how to make this more expandable for their own business and relevance to what they're doing. So let's start off with that.
So last night we were talking about the concept of the 4 levels of value, and the 4 levels of value tend to lend to not only value creation, but also your overall revenue. And if you're missing one piece of these things within your system, more often than not, you have the other pieces and it doesn't allow for you to scale or even operate at the level that you're capable of operating on. This is a concept that I actually got from Myron Golden. And, you know, I've made some tweaks to it just from my understanding of it. And I feel like each business model deals in it and operates on it from their understanding and honestly where they start from.
So yeah, the reason I wanted to interject is because as of right now, so this is the cool thing about this, what we're doing right now, I'm being very transparent. We won't get into like the actual numbers and decimal points of all of it. But right now, Mind, Body, One is in a very big transitioning period where we went from probably for the first decade making 5 figures, like higher 5 figures, which obviously is livable, but it's not something you can scale. Now we're in the point of making mid to low 6 figures. And the goal obviously is next to make 7 figures. But for all that to happen, there's certain principles and systems that have to be in place, which is not necessarily something hard to do, but it still needs to be implemented. And that's where coaching comes in. That's what Harold does. Now, by trade, he's a track coach, but he's much more than that. And I've implored him to go into more to business consulting. And that might be on the future and on the horizon. But right now, I want to say is where Mind, Body, One is. We have different tech we've been developing for the last maybe 2 to 3 years. And this is the next wave because we have in-person contracts that's making us our main revenue. So he spoke on this system he's talking about of how to make that grow because obviously it's a process. So what is that?
All right. So a few years ago, when I was working on my business, like pre-COVID and through COVID, actually, I actually started my consulting business, Need for Speed Biz Dev. Like, so I'm a speed coach. That's my claim to fame. That's what people know me for. HG 1080 Speed, the speed guy. And when you understand that money and speed are similar, because if you have a lot of speed on the track or in sports, you're valuable. If you have a lot of money in business, you're valuable. And I actually use this interchangeably. Like, you know, even in events, in track and field, or even in sports, when you have too much speed, i.e. like wide receivers who have a ton of speed, it's like having a lot of speed and not being able to manage your speed, you end up wasting a lot of it and you're not able to execute properly. So for business in and of itself, I feel like speed and money align very directly as we talk about currency, right? So the concept we were talking about last night was just the 4 levels of value. Level 1 is implementation. And I say implementation is like running. If you're running, you're using your muscle and you're spending a lot of time exerting energy, right? And you end up tired and exhausted, but you had a lot of input and you got very little output. And there's a residual effect because now you got to come back the next day and do it again, right? There's level. once you move into the next, let's say leverage is actually one of those very valuable things. So if you in your business, you find some leverage, i.e. social media, whether it be business suite tools, whether it be, depending on what your business is, finding tools that can allow for you to get more productivity in a lower amount of time. That's important. So I'll say, well, if you have a small team or if you bring in tools, you move from implementation to unification. Hey, me using AI, me using some other tools allows for me to unify, to me to incorporate something outside of myself. And that's like a bike. So a human has 2 legs, a bike has 2 wheels and 2 pedals. So now you're taking the 2 legs and now you're using one of the 2 pedals, and you can go further faster on the bike with the wheels and the leverage than you can go running. And you save a little more energy in the same amount of time. Well, that's all cool until you move into the next phase, which is communication. So in the communication realm, you run into a totally different area where you may have 4 wheels. So you now have a team of people where you're working together. You guys are doing some things. The team's working really well. And so it's not just using your tools. You have people who you've coached up to use your tools. And in them using your tools, you get, hey, I have several people who are doing several things at a high rate of speed, and we're getting so much further. We're covering so much more ground. And in doing that, it's if you're driving a car. A car has 2 pedals, a gas pedal and a brake pedal. So you go from 2 pedals on a bike and a gear shift to 2 pedals in a car, which is a gas and a brake. But you got 4 wheels to leverage. And I'm sure most of us have gone on trips. And I promise you, to drive 10,000 miles or 20,000 miles in a car, although it might not be comfortable, is much better than trying to do it on a bike. So you have way more leverage when you have a team of people working together within a system.
So let me interject there, because when Mind Body One in 2016, 17, it was the early stages. Now, granted, I was in the industry way before that, but that was the official launch. I was the runner/bike. There was a lot of me running around using my own manpower, Nicholas Alexander Davenport doing it. And then eventually I got a little more help, maybe some help with some contractors. So it was a bike. So I was pedaling. I could cover way more ground as a bike. But let's fast forward to now, today, you're talking about the car. I would say, granted, I'm doing pretty well, but I say I'm in the car right now because you mentioned like the different moving parts, having a team. And how does one get to the point they get into the car? Because in the mental performance industry specifically, and that's who most of these people are going to be watching are from that industry, how do they get to the car? Because a lot of them are stuck on the running part. They're doing all the stuff to get their credentials. They got the master's in sports psych or a PhD. They got their CNPC certification. And one of the biggest things I talk about on my page, especially on LinkedIn, is what else? Because at the end of the day, we need to make money. Mm-hmm. Being good at your craft is great, but there's the thing called, what we call it, a starving artist. Mm-hmm. They can paint the best murals, the best paintings, the best sculptures, but they make no money. And for some reason in psychology, I don't know why, not even just sports psychology, but psychology, they make this weird barrier where money is not part of the equation of your expertise bringing in revenue. Because at the end of the day, a business needs to bring in revenue. Yes. So how do they get into that car? I know how to do it. You know how to do it. Yes. But how did they do it?
Okay, so when you're running around, you're going to conventions, you're doing your due diligence in the process of learning the skill and more so becoming a master in your craft. Within that, when we talk about moving to like implementation onto the bike, you got to move onto the bike. In moving onto the bike, you're using your tools effectively and efficiently. So a lot of it is structure. Like if I gave you 2 bicycle wheels without an actual bicycle, you would not be able to use those tools effectively. If I gave you a bike with no pedals, you still cannot use them. So it's the ability to use those tools, i.e. social media, i.e. communication, because you want to communicate to your clients. You want to be able to communicate to other businesses. You want to be able to connect with the people within your community. And you want to be able to use, whether it be social media, whether it be a scheduling app, whether it be a payout system, right? For people to pay you to where you can get direct to consumer, when you have content, when you have information, when you have education for them. You need to have a tool to move from, hey, I'm doing this work here. I need to move to the next step so I can get comfortable with using the tool. And this sets you up to get into the car, where you can bring on other people to work in your car, right? And what I say is, because now you've done the videos, you've done the scheduling, you understand the operations, and you can start to create a manual so that when you, let's say you're collaborating with another company, or you're bringing someone on to work underneath you within your practice, you can say, hey, this is how we schedule, this is how we do this, and you can train them up. And what it does is, now you have people underneath you who, A, you're mentoring, you're pouring down into, B, they're able to support a larger audience. And the overall vision and the overall mission, i.e. to help people, to support people from where you understand it, you have a system for them to come into. So now, not only you have a system for people to pay you, or for you to pay your employees, or for people who are working with you, you have a system to schedule. You may have a secretary at that point, someone who can kind of mitigate. You may also have a business coach or developer who can see some things that you don't see. So that's realistically how you get into the car. The car is going to be being able to, A, effectively and efficiently use the tool and create a manual so that you can coach up the people who you have around you to also use the tools within a framework that is safe, consistent, and now, because once you get really good in your field and you have there's a huge saying that people don't rise to their potential, they fall to their systems. Well, if I'm only capable of, i.e. emotionally, mentally, or I have the bandwidth to handle 30 clients a week, that's great. But that's all I'm going to be able to handle. I can up my prices, which will be cool. And I can become a boutique or a cosmetic style where it's like, oh, well, you're this great thing. But if your goal is to help people and to help as many people as possible, not only you're helping the people who are working with you, you're helping the people that they're helping. Because if you can only do 30 hours and they can do another 10 across 4 people, you got 70 people that you're helping. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. I think people get into the frame of competition instead of collaboration. And then that's where you have to start to move into the car.
So to that point, I would say that in the mental performance industry, it's actually the opposite. You're right, what you just said, the competition versus collaboration. But I've seen so many people say, there's enough clients to go around. And I think that's a misnomer / incorrect statement, because while, yes, there's 8 billion people on the planet Earth, you're going to probably only talk about realistic 0.03% of those people. So you're talking about maybe hundreds of thousands of people that we're all sharing, because this is a niche industry at that. It's subservient. I'm using the word subservient to mental health services, which is therapy. And this is not that. So what I'll lead into, because I know you talked about the car, obviously after the car, they probably can assume at home what comes next. So to get to that next level, I think they first got to admit that what you're doing can't just be for the sake of your skill set of, I went to school for this. Then you got to start thinking of the form of, how do I scale this? Because that's where most of the industry is failing, because no one teaches these either up and coming practitioners or the people who have been in the field 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 years how to scale. That's any business, but in the mental performance, it just gets overlooked completely. And I think that goes perfectly to the next phase of this trajectory.
So one of the things I did not talk about in moving to the car is managing people. Because I think from a car, you can only go to a plane, which is, a plane only has two wheels, but it has a propeller, and it can move further, faster, and it can carry more people. So when we're talking about these large machines of people, you would have to, understand not only the skills of managing, your empathy level would have to be high, but you would also have to have the right people in the right position so that you can move from place to place. You're correct, Nick, when you talk about, hey, there's only a finite number of people who are doing the thing, right? Like, hey, in mental coaching, this is the number that we are dealing with, and people are graduating with these degrees every day. In graduating with a degree every day, everyone does not have the experience. And being able to partner yourself with a mentor, being able to partner yourself with someone who's been in the field, in the trenches, who can guide you, mentor you, show you the next steps, right? Whether that be in sports, whether that be in general population, that's a necessity. And so and some people have a heart to say, hey, I want to spend my time doing the one-on-ones. Hey, awesome. But realistically, the way things work is there has to be a level where you can connect to many people in a timely manner, in an efficient way. That is very sensitive, very privacy sensitive, and having people you can trust, being able to manage those people and trust those people, I think is key, right? So when we talk about moving from one step of having the right people on board, understanding what your vision is and who you are, and helping to align yourself with those right people, you move from the car and finding the people who are like, hey, you know what? We believe in the same things. We have similar shared experiences. We communicate to a degree similar. However, Jody may need this, Tom may need that, etc. And they may need to hear it from a different voice, right? And that allows for you to expand your reach. So, and I think there's a component of it that is global. I think even when we talk about the moving from the car into what we would consider a plane, you're not only talking about just, watch this. You're not only talking about just the training component. There's materials that goes with that. There's books. There's your story, right? And there's so much that you can use to connect with the people. And whether you want to monetize those things is one thing. Hey, I have a story, I'm going to send out my biography, etc. And people who are going to align with that is cool. Now you have a group of people who also align with that thing, right? And now you can do small group activities. You can meet with teams. You can meet with organizations that have over 100 people, because you have the bandwidth and the manpower, and not only just the bandwidth and the manpower, you have the expertise and you have the alignment. People 100% miss the alignment. Watch this. If your car is misaligned, it drives the wrong direction. So you can have a car and it's going in the wrong direction. You got to make sure everything's aligned. And so those are the skills of managing people, and then moving into those next phase and being able to use all the tools and all the leverage that can be important to scaling and being able to impact lives, man. Honestly.
So I want to end with this straight like that. There's thousands of individuals that graduate with a degree in sport psychology. Now, granted, all the things you're saying can apply to any industry. But since most of my audience are those people, those kids, or even some people that are older than me, I'm 36, there's people that DM me all the time. Nick, I like what you're doing. How do I do X, Y, and Z? So what I'm going to end with, and I'm going to ask you, I want all the people that's listening, if they're in the mental performance industry especially, I want them to make at least 5 figures. Now, 5 figures just means $10,000. That's the minimum. So at least 5 figures outside of whatever you're doing, whether you're running your own business or you work for the government, you work for the military, you work for a sports team, MLB, whoever. I want you to make at least 5 figures outside of that. It's very doable. And granted, I've been able to do it. That's why I wanted to talk about this candidly, because I'm not going to get into the exact amount my money brings in. Ask the IRS about that. But I want to say that the industry, it's been good to me. And I'm blessed and grateful to say that I turned a dream and an idea into an actual industry that I'm now thriving in. And I want that for everyone else. So when people get on, I'm going to say this, when people get on my page and want to argue with me, and they want to get into the semantics of, well, the industry says this is ASP, CMPC. I'm going to be real. I've been holding my tongue a lot. Even though I speak against it, I've still been holding my tongue. I'm going to say it right now. I know the camera's looking at Harold, so it's going to see his face when I say this, but that's not going to get you paid. Even if you work for the government, most of those jobs pay under 60, 70,000. Most of them pay under 50,000. Now, for up-and-comers who hear that, don't be discouraged. There's another way. So what I just said, I want you to make at least 5 figures. So if you're making 60,000, 50,000, great. Another 10,000 won't hurt you, right? That's another trip. That's another endeavor. That's another investment in Bitcoin, stocks, whatever. So what I'll say to Harold is, what do they need to know in their mind? Forget the semantics of business. What do they need to open up their mind to understand that this is bigger than just your practice? This is about understanding how to grow in a industry.
The biggest thing I can tell someone who is trying to make an additional $10,000+ is understand what your skill set is. Understand what the tool set is, what you can leverage, what you can do, and how you can do it. Because once you understand how to leverage your skills, who you're talking to, whether that be verbal, whether that be technology, whether it be selling course, I wouldn't say selling courses, but more so selling materials or books. You have to understand that there's a bigger picture and there's some growth there. Like the field is wide open. So to make an additional $10,000, I would say in your area specifically, with the clients that you currently have, produce some content, produce some materials, because each person has their philosophy. And if you're working with someone, say, hey, I want to clear this with you the right way. And this is some material that is backed by, science and understood as, foundationally correct, etc. Right? And say, hey, do it the right way, guys. I would never tell anyone to do it the wrong way, but make sure that you're doing the right way and just produce things that are going to enhance and support your clients. And here's the thing. Some of it can be outside of your field. Hey, let me work on getting a nutrition degree so that I can help people eat properly so that they can have mental clarity, right? Or to prescribe properly. If I'm going to do a physical task, let me make sure that I'm understanding how to do these things accurately and how I can merge those things together, right? Each piece, once you start to stack skills on top of skills, understandings on top of understandings, you realize that, hey, there is so much untapped space for me to build value in the clients who I currently work with lives, And you know what? That may even mean partnering with someone who do those things if you don't want to spend the time learning those things yourself. Hey, I know a nutritionist, I know a coach, I know a business person, and you guys work in proper synergy, because the synergy is where you can and have the right deals with the right people, and that way you can actually make that additional 5 figures.
So this is straight from the sources, because this guy right here you're talking to, or listening to, I should say, he helped me go from 5 figures to 6 figures. And this is not just some cliche, take my course, this is what we're saying, make money. No, there's levels to this. And what I want to leave you guys all with is the 5 figures was a starting point. I really want to make y'all 6 figures. And there's no rule that says you can't do right by the industry, because I've done my due diligence. I have degrees. I have so many hours past the master's that I should have a PhD based on the hours, but obviously I dropped out my program, but that's another story. So I'm going to end it with this. This guy sitting right in front of us, beyond what he just gave you from the mental and mindset game for building your business, he also is an elite level practitioner when it comes to speed, track performance. So that's another topic. We've had numerous podcasts we've done on that. But I want you to let you know, you're getting some great game from someone who knows this. So I implore you, at the end of this, your goal should shift right now, because the only way to make it in this industry is going to sound bad, but it's doing the stuff that ASP, CMPCs, and your master's program did not teach you. If you're willing to do that, I can guarantee you're going to make it. I'm going to leave it at that. So Harold, sign off.
Thank you. Hey, listen, guys, get your mind right.